Just in time for the third anniversary of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, peace talks will commence with Washington taking the leading role in dialogue as Trump touted. But will those peace talks guarantee peace? Let's turn to Dr. Robert English this morning. Welcome back, Dr. English.
Nice to be here.
So preparations are well underway for a face-to-face meetup between the leaders of Washington and Moscow. How much progress do you think Trump and Putin can make in their first summit?
I don't think they'll actually meet until their deputies have worked out the broad outlines. They don't want to come together and have a failure. It would be embarrassing for both. Trump is extremely conscious of that as a longtime business leader. So they will have to work out things like NATO membership, how long of a moratorium on Ukraine possibly reapplying to join, the actual line of contact, how much territory will be traded or returned, and of course, the nature of a peacekeeping force. We keep hearing talk of security guarantees. The United States has made it clear that we won't put troops in there, so it's up to the Europeans. The U.S. will sell more weapons, and I stress sell because obviously they're not being gifted any longer. And so some combination of weapons and European troops will have to suffice for Ukraine to essentially defend itself with a little bit of European support.
Well, Ukraine's clearly not happy here that it has no role in the peacemaking process at the moment. When do you think Ukraine will be invited? Is that when Trump and Putin are done making their own deals?
You know, it's interesting. There are two negotiations going on now, and Ukraine is part of one of them for sure. Of course, it'll be Russia and the United States, that is Putin and Trump, working out the broad outlines that I just described.
Right.
But unless Ukraine signs on, there can't be a deal. And that's why Ukraine is furiously bargaining in a second set of talks over trading its mineral resources for various investments and promise of future weapons from the United States. That is a negotiation. And of course, Ukraine can hold up the other one, because if they don't agree with what the U.S. is offering, if they won't sign off on a deal, then the deal with Russia cannot go forward. So Ukraine is not powerless here. They kind of have a veto power.
Well, at the same time, isn't the U.S. pressuring UN member states to persuade Ukraine to withdraw the UN resolution condemning Russia? What is Washington's strategy here then?
This is an interesting one because it's not something of substance to the talks going on now or to the conduct of the war. It's more symbolic. Putin doesn't want to see another United Nations resolution, another one. There have been many condemning Russia and blaming it for the war, and apparently has asked Trump to see if the United States can't derail that, can't halt it. It's an odd thing that Trump would go to this much trouble and risk so much more embarrassment, because he'll be called again Putin's puppet, that he's making concessions and capitulations for something that's not even important. So it's kind of a disturbing sign of Trump's priorities that he's even willing to do this for Putin when it's not essential to the peace talks themselves.
Well, like our reporter reported just now, what Trump wants is Ukraine's minerals in return for ending the war, while Ukraine is insisting on security guarantees, like you mentioned, and investments as key conditions for a final deal. How can Trump and Zelensky then, fine-tune and narrow their differences?
It's going to be very difficult.
Indeed.
Because Zelensky has to deal with his own government. He doesn't have the constitutional right, even as the president in a time of martial law and war, to sign away his country's resources. This is something that will have to be scrutinized by the Ukrainian parliament and the various expert committees. And it's incredibly complicated, a deal of this size. And then there are questions of competitiveness. If I was a Ukrainian, I don't want to sign these resources away to American mining companies.
Of course
Many
not.
people don't know. The biggest rare earth mining companies in the world are Chinese, Australian. There are some American ones, but they're smaller and more specialized. If I'm Ukrainian, I might want the Australian or Canadian company and get a better deal that's competitive. And this is being done in like an old Soviet way of state-to-state barter. It's a very bad precedent.
Well, Trump is still very confident, even saying that Ukraine has no cards to play on the table. Is that so? Does Ukraine really have not have anything to play at the moment?
Well, as I said, Ukraine has a kind of veto power. And the longer Zelensky resists, and maybe backed up by many members of the Ukrainian parliament when they see the outlines of this deal, the more they can drag this out. And Trump not only wants to be able to come to a deal with Putin, he wants to be able to boast to the American people that he kept his promise of ending the war quickly. And Ukraine can slow that down. Ukraine is able to derail it. Trump, I do not think, can just walk away out of frustration. That would be a catastrophe and a firestorm that even he would not want to risk. So the Ukrainians have some power here. They have some agency to slow things down and try to get a better deal. And you can see the frustration in Trump's behavior and his comments as they are actually doing that already.
Definitely. That's why they have to play wise and smart here. Dr. English, thank you so much for joining us this morning. We appreciate it.
You're welcome.